I'll let you know my riding journey and how I come about to get into the horses. I hadn't touched a horse until I was nearly 16 years old. I met my current partner Steve, and he's had horses all his life. All his family are horsey. So I met him, and he had a horse called Spud up at his dad's yard, and I started to ride Spud. He was a black, I think he was a Welsh Section D cross, black stallion. So about 15-1, and he was lovely, but Steve's whole family do driving horses, so Spud was probably predominantly a driving horse. So Steve was broken to ride, so I learnt to ride on him, but he had to be ridden in a blinker bridle like they do for driving, because that's all he knew. And he didn't know how to canter, he just walked and trotted, so I learnt to ride on him. So I'd learnt to walk and trot on Spud, and they had various other horses up that yard as well. So I learnt to canter the basics on one of the other ponies. So not long after, Steve had been offered a unbroken, about 4-year-old chestnut mare, flaxen mane and tail, full Welsh D, and he bought her for my birthday, Goffsake Lady Jane. So I'm then 16 years old with an unbroken Welsh D. So I had to learn quickly to break her to ride. Steve had broken horses to ride in the past, so it wasn't new to him, but it was new to me. So I learnt very quickly, and we got her going. We broke her into ride, drive, jump. I had so much fun with her. Had her for a couple of years. We got offered a field locally to rent, so we took her off to this field with another friend of ours, and we just had great fun with her. She was within hacking distance of one of the local shows, the show that we now take Lewis and Gambler to. That's why we carry on supporting that show, because it was one of the first shows that I ever done. So yeah, the field that we were at was within hacking distance to that. So I went a few times and watched what we had to do, but not in depth. So we got her up, we got her all bathed and ready to take to this show one day, and I took her in, but I had taken her in, turned out like we would for the driving horses. So she was plaited, there was red thread put in her mane, I had a black jacket on, so the turnout was not what is correct for a Welsh Section D, but what was correct for a driving horse. So we came absolutely last in every class that we done, but that made me look deeper into the showing world and looking at like who came first, what they had, what they'd done, and that's how I learned. No one else, none of Steve's family had done ridden showing before. They all just driving horses and in-hand horses. So I was learning on my own, and I didn't know anyone in the horsey community, and of course there wasn't Facebook and YouTube back then, so I had to learn all myself. So all the tack and the turnout tips and everything I found out through failing. You don't learn nothing by succeeding to begin with. You only learn from your failures. So we had baby Jane for a couple of years, and then in the field she got injured, she cut her chest, so she had to move back to the father-in-law's yard so she could be stabled and heal this cut that she'd got. And while she was there, I found out I was pregnant with our first son. So the father-in-law told us that you can't do horses and babies, so we were made to sell her, which was heartbreaking, but we found a lovely home for her. So we were horseless. New baby, we just bought our first flat as well then, so hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You know, it was the best thing for that time, but I was now addicted to horses. So we were at a local car boot sale one day, and there was a horse advertised on one of the sellers' stalls, and she was in the field behind. So we went to go see her, and I purchased Jeannie. So she was the best thing that ever happened to me. She was a 2-year-old, unbroken, Irish Draught cross Haflinger, absolute chunk of a mare, chestnut mare. She was nuts, absolutely bonkers. So we had Jeannie and had her at the father-in-law's yard, and we started doing the groundwork and break ride. And then we were offered this yard that we're currently on. We've been here 19 years now. So we bought Jeannie down here with a friend of ours and really cracked on with the riding. She was a funny mare, she was a chestnut mare, but she taught me how to ride. She really taught me how to sit a buck. But she was great fun, so much fun. So I done everything with her. I jumped her, schooling, cross country, sponsored rides, everything, absolutely everything with her. And she firmly became my best friend. And I had her for a long time. We lost her about 5 years ago now. She had a brain injury that we didn't actually know about until it got too bad, sadly. But she was my best friend, and she taught me everything I know. So I took her ridden showing and done really well with her. She could be platted up like a driving horse, being a part bred. So I had great fun with her, absolutely amazing. And so then we went on to buy, my heart was set on the Welsh Section Ds, so because of baby Jane. So we went up to Wales, and we picked up 2 black Welsh Section Ds, Duke and Darcy. From a breeder my friend knew up there, so we bought them back, and they were absolutely lovely. But with the young babies, my second son had come along by now. With the young babies, I couldn't do 2 stallions at the same age. So we gelded Duke, and I loaned him out to a friend of mine just down the road. So he went to them, they broke him into ride, and I started breaking Darcy to ride as well. We've done some in-hand shows with him, licensed him up as a stallion, and broke him to ride. And then we went and bought a broodmare called Misty, and we had a foal off of her and Darcy. She produced us 2 foals over the time, and then a year or so later we had Sunnybrook Cracker out of Misty and Darcy as well. And then we had Jeannie had a foal as well, Sunnybrook Bullseye. but Jeannie got really ill. She retained a placenta, and so we decided we'd never breed from Jeannie again. She was really ill with that. So, but she'd given us a cracking little foal as well. So it was all great fun handling these foals, bringing them up. But loads of my friends wanted to buy the foals. So all 3 foals found over the years, found lovely homes with my friends, who most of them still have got them foals. So I know where most of the horses are that I've had over the years. So yeah, so we had Darcy, we had these foals, had the broodmare Misty, had Jeannie, and yeah, I wanted to get back into the more showing of Welsh Ds, and although Darcy was absolutely lovely, he was a finer Welsh D, so he wasn't as good in the show ring. But another friend of mine had wanted to buy Darcy, so we decided to geld him and sell him to a friend of mine, and I bought a lovely Palomino yearling colt called Dodger. I'm a sucker for an odd coloured horse, as you might tell with the 4 that we've got now. Willow being sooty Palomino, Champ being a buckskin, Donut is chestnut roan, and Gambler is actually a black roan. I like to stand out in the crowd. By this time our friends had given up horses, so we were on this yard all on our own, and we had a hell of a lot more grazing back then than we do now. So we bought another horse called Molly. She was a Connemara. Absolutely lovely. She had been broken in previously, but the owner had a shoulder injury, so Molly hadn't been ridden for about a year. So she come to us, and she was absolutely brilliant. She rode, but we broke her to drive as well, and I had great fun doing some shows with her. And with her, I'd started going up the levels a little bit. At the local shows, you can qualify for, it was back then, the Chiltern and Thames show. So I qualified with Molly, and we went there and we had a wonderful time. It was like the next step up for me, and having learned everything, being self-taught on everything, I was so pleased with that achievement. So we had Molly for a fair few years until I decided that she was too good, because I had all the other horses as well. Molly was one of these that you could ride for weeks on end and then leave for months and then just jump back on, and beside all the other youngsters that we were breaking in and training, she was just being left. So I put her advert up for sale, and my next door neighbours come straight up to me and wanted to buy her, and they did, and she lived out her life in the stables, just 2-minute drive from our yard. So by now we had started breaking Misty, the broodmare, to ride, and another friend of mine was falling in love with her, so she bought Misty, and Darcy had gone to another friend, the foals had gone, and Molly had gone to the neighbour, so we had Dodger. He was about 14-1, 14-2 Palomino Welsh Section D. We bought him as a yearling. And I had great fun with him doing the in-hand showing, and he was smashing it. He was regularly winning, becoming champion. And we qualified for loads. I had such fun with him that we decided he was good enough then to take me to county shows doing the in-hand. And we done a few of those, and he was again being placed really well and just having fun and learning so much from him. So we started breaking him to ride. He was not the easiest one to break to ride because he'd become so attached to me that when I was on his back, he was panicking that he couldn't see me. So we felt it was in his best interests to go to my friend's yard for a month, to lose the attachment to me, and my friend and her daughter would start breaking him to ride for me. It was the best decision we done because it worked so well for Dodger. So he stayed there for a month and come home, and I carried on producing him. So we had great fun, absolute great fun. We went cross country. But we had great fun. I went dressage training. And it was brilliant time. And I used to go hacking out with a friend of ours who then, she really taught me how to ride. She taught me then how to know I was on the right trot leg or canter leg, and I used to go to her yard and ride her big dressage horses and start learning the basics of leg yield, turn on the forehand, all stuff like that, where I learnt them on her horse, and then I could start teaching my horses it. So we started learning the more in-depth bits about riding. So I was having great fun on Dodger at home, but when we took him into the ridden show ring, his nerves got the better of him. He just needed so much time and patience in a show ring environment, which was absolutely fine. I was working him through it and everything. I was giving him all the time that he needed. I was willing to wait for him. So what you might find from now is I love the training. I love the groundwork and all that. So I had a phone call one day. My friend was at a local horse sales, and she found a little pony called Socks, who was Welsh Section C, passported and everything, but extremely skinny. And nervous. So she rang me and asked if I'd take him in. So he came to me for a bit. I was doing the groundwork with him, took him out to a few shows. But of course, being Section C, I'm 5'9". I could never ride him. So he went to be a driving horse. We hadn't broken him to drive, but he went on to be a driving horse for another friend of mine. Who then broke him to ride as well, and he became a smashing kids pony. And then I was on the internet one day, and I came to an advert for a lovely big 15 hands already at a yearling, a black, 4 white socks. He was absolutely amazing. Called Alfie. So we went over to buy him, but he'd been purchased as a 6-month-old foal and chucked out in a 20-acre field, so we couldn't catch him. So we spent hours trying to round him up. He was basically wild. So we left and come home, but before we even made it home, I'd had a text off the owner asking if I could go back the following weekend and try and get him again. So we did. I made some phone calls to vets, RSPCA and everything, to see if there was any options that they could do us to sedate the horses. There was 3 in the herd, Alfie and 2 others. So yeah, so I rang the vet to see if they had any options to sedate the horses so we could catch them, round them up into the horse box and that. And the only thing that they could come up with that they would allow us to do was to put some sedative in buckets of feed to calm the horses down. So we went back over to the field. The owners had been feeding all three of them in a smaller paddock every evening to try and get the horses into the routine of eating a feed and coming in a smaller area. So the following weekend we went up there, we gave them their feed that they were used to now, but with a slight sedative in it so we could make them a little bit more sleepy. And we just waited for it to take effect, and they were a little bit more sleepy. So we managed to round all three of them into the horse box, and by then my partner had decided he also liked the chestnut one called Chester. So we went in the horse box, managed to get head collars on them to get them safe to travel home, and we gave the third pony back to the owners, all head collared up and everything, so that they could then take them into the stable and do what they wanted with it. And we took the two home. So we now had Alfie and Chester to deal with and get handled and everything. And as I say, a yearling, they were both nearly about 15 hands. So they were going to be big horses. And by then I'd had my third son. So it was just full on. But we got them going, started doing the groundwork, and it became apparent that my partner, working full time, he had no time for Chester. So we put him up for sale and someone came and bought him. I still get regular updates on Chester, which is so nice. So we carried on with Alfie. He was the biggest horse I'd ever ridden. By the time we come to break him, he was virgin 16.2. So biggest horse I'd ever ridden. Still, by this time, we've never had the money for me to have riding lessons. So I'm all self-taught. As I say, I was still hacking out with my friend who had taught me everything. She was absolutely amazing in teaching me every single thing that I know on how to turn out horses, bring them on and do everything. So yeah, so we broke Alfie to ride, had great fun with him. I started to do more dressage. I wanted him to be my dressage horse, the big, what you like seeing, the big black horse, 4 white socks. I thought it'd be absolutely amazing. And it was such a learning curve. I learned so much about dressage, how to ride a dressage test and everything. But at my yard, I haven't got a school. So in the winter, it becomes so hard to keep up riding him. We've got friends that live in Wales. So we decided to go down there and go to the Welsh sales, where we picked up a lovely buckskin Welsh Section D called Badrick. He was lovely. He was 6 months old. So we brought him home, started doing some groundwork with him, and great fun. Lovely. I've always wanted a buckskin, lovely colour, and he was amazing. But at the sales, you don't really get to see their breeding before you buy them. It's all auction. So what we didn't realise is he was an extremely small Section D. He was only going to make about 14.1. So as I say, I'm tall, so he was never, sadly, going to be big enough for me. So we done a few in-hand shows with him and had great fun with him, but sadly we again had to put him up for sale. and he went on to a lovely family. But with each horse that we bought, trained and sold, I was learning something new. I was gaining something from each and every one of them. So I then wanted to take the ridden showing extremely serious, and I wanted to go back to having a stallion. So I started looking on the internet I wanted a Palomino stallion to do the county shows and see how far I could go. So yes, I wanted a Palomino stallion. Conformation, performance, everything that comes above colour, but I was willing to wait the time until I found exactly what I wanted. And it wasn't long before I found what I wanted, but our horse box had broken down by then. So he was over in Essex and we couldn't get up to him, so we asked the people to bring him down to us. And one thing after another, there was just problems along the way, lack of communication and everything. So we decided to not buy that stallion. But whilst I was trawling through the internet trying to find him, I kept seeing an advert for a Palomino gelding, 4 white socks, absolutely amazing. But being a gelding, he wasn't what I wanted. But because I then couldn't find any other Palomino stallion that I wanted, I decided to buy this gelding with the whole intention to sell him. Every time we'd bought a horse and sold it, it gave us a slightly bigger budget to buy the next horse with. So that was the whole plan, to buy this Palomino gelding. Break it to ride, sell it so I had more money to buy my Palomino stallion. But that's how Willow come about, and everything changed. Absolutely everything changed, and we sold everything. So I will follow on from this riding journey with Willow's journey and let you know what happened and why we decided to sell absolutely everything for Willow. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.